in the quiet, tree-lined streets of Crestwood, Ohio, where picket fences and manicured lawns painted a picture of small-town serenity. A sinister shadow lurked beneath the surface, unnoticed by those who didn't know where to look. The Alliance, a clandestine group of local power brokers, had ruled Crestwood for decades, their influence woven into the town's fabric like a poison thread, using fear, vandalism, and whispered threats to keep black families in check. Their calling card, a single white rose left at the scene of their crimes, was a chilling signature, a warning that went unchallenged until it landed on the wrong doorstep. Lena Carter, a former Marine and single mother of two, found that rose, propped against her front door one chilly October evening, flanked by spray-painted racial slurs and slashed tires. The Alliance expected her to cower, to pack up and flee like so many before her. They didn't know Lena had faced death in war zones, had stared down enemies with automatic rifles, and had sworn an oath to protect what was hers. Her children: Jamal, a lanky 16-year-old with dreams of basketball stardom, and Maya, a bright-eyed 9-year-old who saw the world through books and sketches were her line in the sand. The Alliance had picked a fight with a warrior, and Lena Carter was ready to burn their empire to the ground. By the time the dust settled, Crestwood would be a different place, reshaped by a mother's unbreakable will. The morning sun barely pierced the kitchen blinds as Lena moved with the precision of a drill sergeant, her knife slicing through bell peppers with clean, deliberate cuts, the sizzle of onions filling the air with a comforting warmth. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, flicked to the backyard window every few seconds, a habit carved into her from years in Afghanistan, where moments inattention could mean disaster. The Crestwood house, a modest 2-story rental with creaky floors and peeling paint, was her sanctuary now, but she treated it like a forward operating base, always ready for an unseen threat. "Jamal, Maya, breakfast in 10, she called up the stairs, her voice a blend of maternal warmth and military command. Carrying through the quiet house, Jamal shuffled in first, his 6-foot frame slouched in a hoodie, earbuds dangling around his neck like a badge of teenage defiance. "Morning, Mom," he mumbled, grabbing a glass of orange juice from the fridge and slumping onto a stool at the counter. Maya followed, her pigtails bouncing, a book about Mars clutched in her small hands. "Mom, did you know Olympus Mons is like 3 times taller than Mount Everest?" she said, her eyes wide with wonder as she climbed onto the stool next to her brother. Lena smiled, ruffling her daughter's hair, the gesture softening the hard lines of her face. "That's new to me, kiddo. Tell me more while you eat." The kitchen was a study in controlled chaos. Plates of scrambled eggs and bacon arranged with military precision. A color-coded calendar taped to the fridge tracking their lives in meticulous detail. Blue for Jamal's basketball practices, green for Maya's after-school art club, red for Lena's shifts at the VA hospital, where she worked as a trauma nurse. As they ate, Lena ran through the day's logistics, her voice steady but her mind already scanning for threats. "Jamal, you've got practice till 6 p.m., right? Coach Wilson's still pushing those new plays." Jamal nodded, his fork pausing mid-bite. "Yeah, he's obsessed with zone defense. Says I need to work on my footwork." Lena's eyes lingered on him, noting the tension in his shoulders, the way his gaze darted to his phone more often than usual. He'd been quieter since they moved to Crestwood a year ago, the weight of being one of the few black kids in a mostly white high school pressing down on him. "Maya, you're with Mrs. Thompson's reading group after school, right?" Lena asked, turning to her daughter, who was scribbling a doodle of a rocket on her napkin. "Yup. We're reading about astronauts today," Maya said, her enthusiasm undimmed by the world's sharp edges. Lena's heart ached at her innocence, knowing how quickly it could be stolen in a town like this. Before they left, Lena ran her morning security check, a ritual as ingrained as breathing. She tested the window locks, each one clicking into place with a satisfying snap, and pulled up the feeds from the 4 cameras she'd installed herself, their grainy images showing the front porch, backyard, and both sides of the house. The motion sensors, discreetly hidden in the flower beds, blinked green on her phone app, confirming they were active. To an outsider, it might seem paranoid, but Lena had learned in the Marines that paranoia was just preparation by another name. She'd seen too many ambushes, too many safe zones turn deadly, to let her guard down now. As she loaded the kids into her SUV, a battered but reliable Ford Explorer, their elderly neighbor, Mr. George Ellis, waved from his porch across the street, his watering can in hand as he tended his prized rose bushes. His face, usually bright, with the easy smile of a retired journalist, was etched with worry. "Lena," he called, setting the can down and hobbling toward the fence. "Got a minute? Kids, wait in the car," Lena said, tossing Jamal the keys with a practiced flick. She crossed the lawn, her boots crunching on the gravel, and met George at his picket fence. Noting the way his eyes darted toward the street. "What's up, George?" she asked, her voice low. Her body angled to keep the car in her peripheral vision. He leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Heard about the Thompsons' place on Maple Street. Their garage got hit last night, racial slurs spray painted, windows smashed, the works. Police called it random vandalism, but I saw the photos on the neighborhood app. There was a white rose left in the driveway." Lena, her jaw tightened, a muscle twitching as she processed the information. The Thompsons were one of the few other black families in Crestwood. Their son Darius was a teammate of Jamal's on the basketball team. "No one told me," she said, her voice steady but her mind already cataloging potential threats, escape routes, vulnerable entry points, names of neighbors who might be watching too closely. George shook his head, his gray eyes heavy with the weight of old stories. "It's not random. I covered this town as a reporter for 30 years. Saw the same thing in the 70s, same symbols, same roses. Back then, they called it the Alliance. Nobody proved it, but families disappeared. Just keep your eyes open, okay?" Lena nodded, her hand brushing the concealed carry permit in her pocket, a reflex from her service days, though she hadn't carried a weapon since leaving the Marines. "Thanks, George. If you see anything around here, you call me, day or night." He managed a strained smile, glancing at the kids in the car. "Will do. You all have a good day at school." Back in the SUV, Lena caught Jamal watching her in the rearview mirror. His brown eyes too perceptive for his age. "Everything okay, Mom?" he asked, his voice laced with a worry he tried to hide. "Just fine, baby," she lied smoothly, her tone light. George was talking about his roses. Maya launched into a story about her art project, a family portrait under a starry sky. But Jamal's silence was louder, his fingers tapping nervously on his phone. He knew something was off, just like she did, but Lena wasn't ready to burden him with the truth. Not yet. The drive to Crestwood High and Crestwood Elementary was quiet. Lena's eyes scanning every car behind them, every pedestrian on the sidewalk, every shadow that didn't belong. She'd memorized the town's layout when they moved in, mapping it like a battlefield. Main roads, back routes, choke points. She dropped Jamal off first, watching him sling his backpack over one shoulder and disappear into the crowd of teenagers, his height making him easy to track until he was inside. At the elementary school, Maya hugged her tightly, her small arms fierce. "Love you, Mom," she said, then ran toward her friends, her book bag bouncing. Lena waited until the school doors closed behind her, her heart a mix of pride and dread. She hated leaving them, but she had no choice. Her shift at the VA hospital started in 30 minutes. The VA was a bustle of controlled chaos, veterans, with haunted eyes filling the waiting room, their stories a mirror to Lena's own. As a trauma nurse, she was good at her job, her hands steady as she changed dressings or adjusted ifs, her voice calm as she listened to men and women who'd seen too much. She understood their hypervigilance, the way they scanned rooms for exits, the way their shoulders tensed at sudden noises. It was like looking in a mirror, her instincts honed by years of dodging sniper fire and IEDs. Between patients, she checked her phone, half expecting a call from the school. But the screen stayed blank. Still, the unease from George's warning gnawed at her, a low hum in the back of her mind. The Thompsons' vandalism wasn't an isolated incident. She'd seen the signs before, subtle but unmistakable. The cashier at the gas station who took too long to ring her up, the neighbors who stopped waving after the first month, the way certain streets felt colder when she walked them with her kids. After her shift, Lena picked up Jamal and Maya, their chatter a brief respite from the tension coiling in her chest. Jamal griped about Coach Wilson's new defensive drills, his voice animated but his eyes distant. "He's got us running suicides for an hour straight," he said, tossing his gym bag into the trunk. Maya, clutching her astronaut book, bubbled about a new story she'd read about Sally Ride. "She was the first woman in space, Mom. I'm gonna draw her tonight." Lena smiled, but her eyes were on the rearview mirror, checking for tails. They needed groceries, so she pulled into the Crestwood market, its neon sign flickering in the dusk. Inside, the microaggressions hit like clockwork. A security guard, badge number 312, followed them through 3 aisles, his hand resting on his radio as if expecting trouble. Lena noted his name, Tom Reynolds, and kept her face neutral, herding the kids toward the produce section. At the checkout, the cashier, Karen Thompson, served to white customers before acknowledging them, her smile as thin as her excuse. "Oh, didn't see you there," she said, her eyes cold. Jamal's fist clenched, his jaw tight, but Lena's hand on his shoulder stopped him. "Not worth it," she murmured, her voice low. Head high, always. Maya, oblivious to the tension, picked out apples, her small hands testing each one for firmness. But Lena saw the way Jamal's shoulders slumped, the way his eyes tracked the guards' movements. He was 16, old enough to feel the weight of Crestwood's stares too, understand the unspoken rules that didn't apply to his white teammates. As they loaded the groceries into the cart, another shopper, a middle-aged woman in a red coat, clutched her purse and hurried past, her steps quickening. Lena's stomach twisted, but she kept her expression calm, her voice light as she asked Maya about her art project. In the parking lot, Maya tugged at her sleeve. "Can we take the shortcut home, Mom? My arms hurt from the bags." Lena hesitated, her instinct screaming to stick to the main roads, where streetlights and traffic offered safety. Cedar Lane, the shortcut, ran behind the old mill district, a quiet stretch of warehouses and empty lots, but the sun was still up, and the bags were heavy. "Okay," she said finally, "but stay close, Jamal. Keep an eye on your sister." They turned onto Cedar Lane, the warehouses looming like silent giants, their broken windows staring down like empty eyes. Maya hummed a tune from her favorite cartoon, Paw Patrol *, while Jamal scrolled through his phone, texting his teammates about practice. The air was crisp, the late afternoon light casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. Then laughter echoed ahead, sharp and malicious, cutting through the quiet like a knife. For teenagers stepped onto the sidewalk, spreading out to block their path. Lena recognized Ethan Hensley immediately, sheriff's son, star quarterback, his blue Letterman jacket emblazoned with the number 12. His friends flanked him, their smirks identical, their postures radiating untouchability. "Well, look who's lost," Ethan drawled, his eyes fixed on Jamal, the Carter family taking the scenic route. His voice dripped with mockery, his hands shoved casually into his pockets. But Lena saw the tension in his stance, the way his friends positioned themselves to cut off any retreat. "Leave us alone," Jamal said, stepping in front of Maya, his voice steady, but his hands trembling slightly. He was tall for his age, but these boys were older, bigger, their confidence backed by the weight of their last names. Ethan smirked, closing the distance. "Public street, man. We're just being neighborly." His eyes slid to Maya, his tone turning cruel. "Nice sneakers, kid. Bet your mom's working overtime to afford those." Maya clutched her grocery bag tighter, her small frame shrinking behind her brother. Lena was half a block away, her heart pounding, but her movements controlled. She sprinted to her SUV, parked just around the corner, her keys steady in her hand despite the adrenaline flooding her system. She trained for this hostile encounters, high-stakes extractions. The engine roared to life as she floored the gas, tires screeching as she swung around the corner, her high beams pinning the group like a spotlight. "Step away from my children," Lena called, her voice cutting through the air like a blade, the same tone she'd used to command Marines in combat zones. She slammed the car door, her body language radiating controlled threat as she stepped forward, her eyes cataloging every detail. Ethan in his blue jacket, number 12, Kyle Rogers, son of a deputy, in a black hoodie, Jake Peterson, whose father ran the local bank, in a backward baseball cap, and a fourth boy with a snake tattoo curling around his wrist. The boys froze, startled by her sudden appearance, but Ethan recovered quickly, his bravado faltering only slightly. "We're just talking, Mrs. Carter," he said, hands raised, in mock innocence. "No law against that." His friends snickered, but their eyes darted to Lena, uncertainty creeping in. She moved closer, her steps measured, her voice deadly calm. "Here's what's going to happen," she said, her gaze locking onto Ethan's. "You're going to turn around and walk away. If I ever see any of you near my kids again, we're having a different conversation, one involving security, footage, witness statements, and hate crime charges. Your call." Ethan's eyes flickered to his friends, his confidence wavering. The tattooed boy pulled out his phone, starting to record. But Lena didn't flinch, her stare boring into Ethan like a laser. "Whatever," he muttered, backing off, trying to save face. "This is lame anyway." The group retreated, the tattooed boy still filming until they vanished around the corner. Lena rushed to her kids, her hands gentle but thorough as she checked them over. "You okay? Did they touch you?" she asked, her voice soft but urgent. Jamal shook his head, his jaw tight, but Maya's grocery bag had split, oranges rolling across the pavement like fallen soldiers. "They pushed me," she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. Lena hugged them both, her heart pounding, but her face composed. "This isn't your fault," she said firmly. "None of this is your fault. Let's get home." The drive home was silent, the weight of the encounter pressing down on them. Maya sniffled quietly, clutching Lena's hand while Jamal stared out the window, his fists still clenched. At the house, Lena armed the security system, the beeps wary a small comfort in the growing dark. She sat at her laptop in the kitchen, typing a detailed incident report with the precision of a mission. Debrief time 5:47 p.m. Location Cedar Lane, near Warehouse 17. Exact quotes, nice sneakers. Kid, bet your mom's working overtime. Descriptions, Ethan Hensley, blue Letterman jacket, number 12. Kyle Rogers, black hoodie. Jake Peterson, backward cap, unknown male. Snake tattoo on right wrist. She included the earlier slides at the supermarket. Security guard Tom Reynolds, badge 312. Cashier Karen Thompson, building a pattern of harassment that her Marine training demanded she document. Every detail mattered, every moment a piece of the puzzle. As the kids ate dinner, Jamal stressed baking brownies to calm his nerves. Lena checked her phone, finding a text from Sarah Mitchell, her lawyer friend from her Marine days. Asterisk, got your report. This is serious. Sending it to an AACP contacts. Stay vigilant. Asterisk, Lena nodded to herself, her fingers brushing the concealed carry permit she hadn't used in years. She didn't want to carry a gun, not with kids in the house, but the alliances. Escalation was forcing her to rethink her limits. Upstairs, she tucked Maya into bed, listening to her chatter about astronauts until her eyelids drooped. Jamal lingered in the doorway, his face a mix of teenage bravado and fear. Mom, he said, his voice low. They're not gonna stop, are they? Lena met his eyes, her voice steady. They'll try, but we're tougher. We don't run, Jamal. We fight smart. He nodded, but the worry in his eyes didn't fade. After the kids were asleep, Lena resumed her security check, testing the locks, reviewing the camera feeds, and ensuring the motion sensors were active. The backyard feed showed nothing but shadows, but her instincts were humming, a low-grade alarm she hadn't felt since Kabul. She stepped onto the front porch, her flashlight sweeping the darkness, and froze. There, propped against the door, was a single white rose, its petals stark against the night. Surrounded by fresh spray paint slurs she wouldn't repeat, even in her mind. Her heart rate spiked, but her hands stayed steady as she photographed the scene, noting the slashed tires on her SUV, the jagged cuts precise, deliberate. She called Sarah immediately, her voice low to avoid waking the kids. It started, she said. They left a rose, and they hit my car. Sarah's reply was grim. Document everything. I'm digging into old case files, disappearances, fires, all linked to white roses. This is bigger than Crestwood, Lena. Lena hung up, her mind racing. George's warning about the Thompsons, the white rose. The alliance had all connected to stories she'd heard from veterans at the VA. Families driven out of small towns, their homes burned, their cases unsolved. She emailed the photos to Sarah, adding the partial license plate of a dark pickup truck she noticed idling at the corner. Earlier Ohio, JKL94, mud obscuring the last digits, back inside. She hid the photos on a USB drive under a floorboard. In her bedroom, a precaution from her days in hostile territory. The alliance was watching, and she wasn't naive enough to think they'd stop at vandalism. The next morning, Lena took a different route to school, weaving through back streets, doubling back to check for tails. A blue sedan caught her attention. Trailing them for 3 blocks before turning off, she noted its plate, her mind cataloging it alongside the pickup truck. At the VA, her shift was a blur, her hands steady as she stitched wounds and adjusted monitors, but her thoughts were on her kids. She texted Jamal and Maya every hour, confirming they were safe. Their responses brief but reassuring. After work, she decided to act. Ethan Hensley's red Mustang was easy to spot in the high school parking lot, its chrome rims gleaming. She waited across the street, her SUV blending into the evening traffic, and followed him when he peeled out, his music blaring. Ethan drove to the Mill District, pulling into a warehouse lot where 3 black SUVs waited, their tinted windows hiding their occupants. Lena parked behind a delivery truck, her binoculars revealing Ethan meeting with 3 men in suits. Their movements crisp, professional, they exchanged envelopes, the men handing Ethan a small metal case he clutched tightly. Lena snapped photos, with her telephoto lens, capturing their faces, their license plates, and the way Ethan fidgeted under their scrutiny. She recognized one man, Richard Grant, the mayor's husband, whose face was familiar from campaign signs. The others were strangers, but their tailored suits screamed money, power. When they left, Ethan lingered, making calls, giving Lena time to slip closer. Her Marine training made her footsteps silent as she attached a magnetic GPS tracker under his bumper, a military-grade device from a contact in her old unit. Its signal fed directly to her phone, a breadcrumb trail to wherever Ethan went next. Back home, Lena found a package on her porch, a plain envelope from George, containing a USB drive and a note, asterisk gold articles. Alliance has been at this for decades. Be careful, they're watching me too. Asterisk. She plugged the drive into her laptop, scanning headlines from the 1970s and 1980s. Asterisk. Family vanishes after house fire. Asterisk. Asterisk. Black residents report threats. Leave town. Asterisk. Asterisk police dismiss vandalism as pranks asterisk. Each story mentioned a white rose, a detail buried in police reports that never led to arrest. Georgia's note warned of a pattern: families targeted, driven out, or worse. Their cases buried by a corrupt system. Lena's blood ran cold, but her resolve hardened. She called Sarah, her voice steady despite the fire in her chest. I've got photos of Ethan with some suits. And George sent me proof this goes back decades. The alliance isn't just a gang, it's a network. Sarah's response was immediate. Send me everything. I'm meeting with NAACP lawyers tomorrow. And Lena, don't do anything reckless. Lena didn't answer, her eyes on the GPS app showing Ethan's Mustang moving across town. Reckless wasn't her style, but action was. That night, her cameras caught a figure tampering with the backyard feed, a shadow moving with purpose. Lena grabbed her flashlight and a baton, slipping outside silently. The figure, a deputy named Mark Collins, his badge glinting, froze when she confronted him. Just checking for vandalism, he stammered, but Lena's grip on his arm was iron. Start talking, she said, her phone recording. Who sent you? Collins cracked under pressure, his voice shaking. Sheriff Hensley. They've got dirt on everyone my brother's case. They'll reopen it if I don't cooperate. Lena let him go. His confession saved her cloud. Tell your boss he's out of time, she said. Watching him flee. At 2 a.m., police lights flashed outside. Sheriff Roger Hensley stood on her porch, warrant in hand, flanked by the deputies. Lena Carter. You're under arrest for assaulting Ethan Hensley, he said, his smile cold. The evidence: a doctored video showing a woman with Lena's build attacking Ethan at 3 p.m. yesterday, when she'd been at the VA, was laughably fake. But the warrant was real. Lena's hands were steady as they cuffed her, her eyes locked on the white rose still on her porch. She'd hidden the USB drive, sent the photos to Sarah, and backed up everything to a secure server. As they led her to the patrol car, her neighbors watching from their windows, Lena's mind was already planning her next move. The alliance thought they'd won, but they'd only started a war. And Lena Carter didn't lose wars. The Crestwood County Jail was a concrete fortress of flickering fluorescent lights and stale air, its walls echoing with the clank of metal doors and the low murmurs of despair. Lena Carter sat on a hard bench in her 8x10 cell, her back straight, her eyes fixed on the chipped paint across from her. Her mind a battlefield where strategy clashed with rage. The alliance had moved fast, framing her for assaulting Ethan Hensley with a doctored video that painted her as a violent thug, their influence strangling the truth before it could surface. Worse, her children Jamal, 16, and Maya, 9, had been taken from school and placed with the Witt family. Alliance loyalists posing as foster parents in a tidy suburban home that hid their corruption. The thought of her kids in enemy hands ignited a fire in Lena's chest, but she kept it contained. Her Marine training channeling her fury into focus. She'd survived ambushes in Afghanistan, disarmed IEDs under sniper fire, and outlasted enemies who underestimated her. The alliance thought they'd caged a mother. They'd only unleashed a warrior. Tonight, Lena would break free, retrieve her children, and tear another layer off the alliance's rotting empire. Crestwood's shadows were deep, but Lena Carter was a light that burned brighter. The cell smelled of bleach and desperation, shared with 3 other women who eyed her warily. Sensing the coiled intensity beneath her calm exterior, Lena had been processed hours ago, fingerprints taken, mugshot snapped. Her belongings confiscated except for a burner phone slipped to her by Sarah Mitchell, her lawyer and former Marine comrade, during a chaotic transfer to the infirmary. Lena had faked a panic attack, a tactic from her combat medic days. Her pulse racing just enough to convince the overworked nurse. Now, at 10:47 p.m., she sat still, counting the seconds between guard rotations, her ears tuned to the rhythm of boots on concrete. The jail was small, understaffed, and its security lax compared to the forward bases she'd infiltrated overseas. Her cellmate, Carla, a weary woman with a faded tattoo of a rose on her neck, whispered from the bunk above, "You okay, soldier? Lady, you look like you're planning a jailbreak." Lena's lips twitched, but she kept her eyes forward, just thinking, "Carla, go back to sleep." She didn't need allies in here, only time and a window of opportunity she knew was coming. Outside, Crestwood was waking up to the truth. Sarah had rallied the Unity Coalition, a local civil rights group, to stage protests at the jail's entrance, their chants of "Free Lena." Justice for Crestwood, filtering through the cell block's thin walls like a heartbeat. Lena had anticipated this, counting on Sarah to turn her arrest into a public spectacle. The pressure was building, just as she'd planned during their last call when she'd sent Sarah the warehouse photos, Ethan's GPS data, and Deputy Mark Collins' recorded confession. The burner phone, tucked inside her sock, was her lifeline. its encrypted app connecting to the jail's unsecured Wi-Fi, a small-town oversight. She'd spotted immediately. At 11:03 p.m., as the guard's chatter faded during the shift change, Lena began her act. She clutched her chest, her breath shallow and ragged, her face contorted in pain. "Guard!" Carla shouted, catching on without prompting. "She's not right. Get someone." 2 guards approached, their flashlights sweeping the cell, their faces bored but wary. "Carter, what's wrong?" One barked. A burly man with a name tag reading Jenkins. Lena gasped, her voice weak but convincing. "Can't breathe." Hearts racing. Her performance was flawless, honed by years of deception training in hostile territories. "Call medical," Jenkins ordered his partner, a younger guard with nervous eyes. "Possible cardiac event." They wheeled her to the infirmary, a cramped room with peeling linoleum and a single flickering bulb. Sarah was already there, citing legal rights to monitor her client's condition, her briefcase a shield against the guard's protest. The nurse, a tired woman in her 50s, checked Lena's vitals, distracted by the growing noise of the protest outside. "Blood pressure's high," the nurse muttered, stepping out to grab medication. Lena seized the moment, slipping the burner phone from her sock and connecting to the Wi-Fi. Her fingers flew across the screen, uploading the warehouse photos. Ethan Hensley meeting 3 suited men, their license plates clear, and Colin's confession to Sarah's secure server. She sent encrypted copies to the NAACP, the ACLU, and 3 national news outlets, each file a missile aimed at the Alliance's heart. Sarah leaned close, pretending to adjust Lena's chart, and whispered, "Protests are spreading. News vans are here. You've got the town's attention." Lena nodded, tucking the phone away as the nurse returned with a pill she didn't swallow, palming it like a magician. The protest outside grew louder, the crowd's chants now mixed with sirens and megaphone warnings from police. The nurse, flustered, stepped out again to answer a radio call, leaving Lena and Sarah alone. "They're moving you to the hospital," Sarah said, her voice low. "Too much pressure out there. Use it." Lena's eyes flicked to the infirmary door, unguarded for the moment. She mapped the jail's layout during processing to exits, one through the sally port, another through the staff entrance near the parking lot. The sally port was her best bet, chaotic with incoming protesters and news crews. She faked a cough, doubling over to hide her movements as she loosened the restraints on the gurney, her fingers deft from years of knot tying under pressure. When the nurse returned with the guard, Lena was ready, her vitals stabilizing just enough to avoid suspicion. The transfer to the hospital was a calculated risk. As they wheeled her through the sally port, the crowd outside surged. There signs asterisk justice for Lena, stop the Alliance, asterisk visible through the chain-link fence. Sarah slipped away, blending into the chaos while a new guard, a rookie named Torres, took over. Lena clocked his sweaty palms, darting eyes, and marked him as her weak link. In the ambulance bay, a protester threw a bottle, shattering it against the fence, and the guards flinched, their attention split. Lena rolled off the gurney, landing silently behind a stack of crates, her hood passed to her by a protester who breached the perimeter concealing her face. Torres hesitated, his radio crackling with conflicting orders, and Lena was gone, melting into the crowd like a ghost, her Marine training making her invisible. The safe house was a rundown apartment 2 miles away, a bolt hole maintained by Sarah's law firm for clients in danger. Lena arrived on foot, her path a zigzag through alleys to avoid pursuit, her breath steady despite the adrenaline. Inside, George Ellis waited, his face bruised from a recent attack, his cane propped against the wall. "Alliance thugs came for my files," he said, his voice rough but defiant. "Beat me good, but I backed everything up." He gestured to a laptop, its screen glowing with and articles from his days. As a reporter, headlines about missing black families, house fires, white roses left like taunts. 5 families gone in 10 years, he said, pointing to a map pinned to the wall. Red dots marking the incidents, all tied to the Alliance. "Nobody could prove it, but you're close." "Lena," Sarah burst in, her arms full of documents, her face flushed with urgency. "The coalition's mobilized," she said. "Protests are at City Hall now, and the FBI's sniffing around thanks to your uploads. But Lena, Jamal, and Maya are at the Witt's place. It's a fortress." Lena's heart clenched, but her face remained stone. "Show me the layout," she said, her voice flat, her mind already plotting. Sarah spread a blueprint of the Witt's house across the table, a 2-story colonial with reinforced windows, a steel front door, and a backyard fence topped with razor wire. 2 guards at the front, 1 in the back, maybe more inside, Sarah said. "They're armed, Lena." "This isn't a simple grab and go." Lena memorized every detail, entry points, blind spots, the upstairs balcony that could double as an exit. "I'm going in tonight," she said, her tone leaving no room for debate. Sarah opened her mouth to protest, but Lena cut her off. "They're my kids, Sarah. I don't wait." George handed her a duffel bag, his hands steady despite his injuries. "Non-lethal gear," he said. "Pepper spray, smoke grenades, zip ties. Old contacts from my investigative days. Be careful, the wits have done this before." Lena spent the next hour preparing, her movements methodical as she checked the gear, tested the weight of the smoke grenades, and strapped a small knife to her ankle, not for killing, but for cutting through obstacles. She changed into black cargo pants and a hoodie, her face obscured by a cap pulled low. Sarah and George would monitor from the safe house, feeding her updates via a cheap earpiece connected to the burner phone. At 11:45 p.m., Lena slipped out, moving through Crestwood's back streets like a shadow, her boots silent on the pavement. The Witt's house was in a quiet suburb, its manicured lawn and white shutters a lie hiding their allegiance to the Alliance. Lena crouched behind a hedge across the street, her night vision goggles turning the darkness into green-tinted clarity. She counted to guards at the front, their rifles slung casually, their radios crackling with routine checks. A third guard patrolled the backyard, his flashlight sweeping lazily. Sarah's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Ready when you are." Lena gave a curt nod, invisible in the dark. "Go." A block away, Sarah triggered a car alarm, its wail piercing the night. The front guards snapped to attention, jogging toward the sound, their radios buzzing with confusion. Lena moved, scaling the backyard fence in seconds, her gloved hands gripping the razor wire without hesitation. She landed softly, her body low, and crept to the trellis beneath the master bedroom window. The lock was a simple pin and tumbler, child's play for her Marine training. She picked it in under 10 seconds, easing the window open and slipping inside, her boots silent on the hardwood floor. The house was quiet, but Lena's senses were on high alert, every creak and hum amplified. She heard voices downstairs, Mrs. Witt's cloying tone, Maya's small, scared voice answering. "I want my mom," Maya said, her words a knife in Lena's heart. "Your mom's not well, sweetie," Mrs. Witt replied. "We're keeping you safe." Lena's blood boiled, but she stayed focused, moving down the hallway, her goggles revealing a guard at the top of the stairs. His boots creaked as he turned, and Lena pressed against the wall, her breath controlled. When he passed, she struck, a chokehold dropping him silently to the floor. She zip-tied his wrist and ankles, dragging him into a closet before moving on. Maya's voice grew louder as Lena neared a bedroom, its door slightly ajar. She peered inside, seeing her daughter sitting on a bed, her astronaut book clutched to her chest, Mrs. Witt looming over her with a false smile. Lena tossed a smoke grenade into the hallway, its hiss sparking shouts of fire. From downstairs, Mrs. Witt reached for a phone, but Lena was faster, bursting in and disarming her with a strike to the wrist, the phone clattering to the floor. "Mom," Maya cried, throwing herself into Lena's arms. Lena held her tight, checking for injuries with practiced hands. "Where's Jamal?" she whispered. "Basement," Maya said, her voice trembling. "They locked him up." Lena moved downstairs through the smoke, her goggles cutting through the haze. A guard fired wildly, his shots high and panicked. She swept his legs, knocking him out with a precise elbow strike, her training making her movements fluid, almost automatic. The basement door was steel, bolted with a digital lock, but Sarah had sent her an override device, a small black box that cracked the code in seconds. Lena pushed through, finding Jamal in a bare room, a broken chair leg in his hand, his eyes fierce. "Took you long enough," he said, his voice shaky but proud. Lena hugged him, her relief overwhelming but brief. "We're moving," she said, leading them back through the smoke, up the stairs and out the balcony window, where a rope ladder from George's gear waited. They hit the ground running, Sarah's car idling a block away. Sirens wailed in the distance as they piled in. Lena checking her kids for injuries as Sarah floored it, taking back roads to avoid pursuit. At the safe house, Lena sat Maya and Jamal on a couch, her hands gentle as she checked them over again. "They didn't hurt us," Jamal said, his voice steady, but his eyes haunted. "But they kept saying you were dangerous, that we'd be better off without you." Lena's jaw tightened, her voice soft but firm. "They're wrong, Beatty, and they're done." Sarah handed her a file from the Witt's house, a ledger listing payments from shell companies, 2 local officials, including the mayor, and a journal by Angela Reed, a black activist who'd vanished 3 years ago. Her entries detailed the Alliance's tactics: intimidation, bribes, disappearances, all tied to White Roses. The last page mentioned a meeting at an abandoned mill, scheduled for tomorrow night. Lena's burner phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She answered, her voice steel. "Carter," a distorted voice hissed, "back off, or your kids are next." Lena's grip tightened, her eyes on Jamal and Maya. "Safe for now. You've got no idea who you're dealing with, she said, her voice low and deadly. I've faced worse than you in war zones. Threaten my family again, and you'll regret it. She hung up, adding the call to her evidence log, her mind already planning for the mill. The Alliance was scared, and scared enemies made mistakes. Tomorrow, Lena would be ready, her children by her side, her resolve unbreakable. The shadows of Crestwood were about to meet their match. The abandoned mill on the outskirts of Crestwood, Ohio, loomed like a rusted monument to a forgotten era, its jagged silhouette cutting into the twilight sky, its broken windows glinting with the menace of a predator lying in wait. Inside, the Alliance Sheriff Roger Hensley, Mayor Evelyn Grant, and their cabal of corrupt elites scrambled to salvage their crumbling empire, their secret meeting a desperate bid to erase the evidence Lena Carter had exposed. Her warehouse photos, Deputy Collins' confession, and Angela Reed's journal had gone viral, shared across social media and picked up by national news. Turning Crestwood into a flashpoint of outrage, Lena crouched behind a stack of crates. In the mill's cavernous interior, her body coiled like a spring, her camera pinned to her jacket streaming live to thousands, its lens capturing every move the Alliance made. She'd rescued her children, Jamal and Maya, from the Wits Fortress, gathered proof of decades of hate crimes and corruption, and sparked a movement that had Crestwood streets alive, with protesters chanting for justice. Tonight, in this decaying mill, she would end the Alliance's reign of terror or die trying. The world was watching, and Lena Carter, former Marine and unyielding mother, was ready to show them what justice looked like when it burned bright enough to banish the shadows. The air inside the mill was thick with the scent of rust and oil, the faint hum of distant machinery mingling with the low voices of the Alliance members below. Lena's earpiece crackled with updates from Sarah Mitchell, her lawyer and ally, stationed at a safe house 2 miles away, live streams of 50,000 viewers and climbing. Sarah whispered, her voice taut with urgency. Protesters are blocking the roads to keep the sheriff's deputies out. FBI's 3 minutes away. George Ellis, the retired journalist whose bruises bore witness to the Alliance's brutality, chimed in from his laptop setup. Signals strong. Lena, keep the camera steady. This is going global. Lena adjusted the tiny camera on her chest, its feed capturing the mill's interior, rusted beams, scattered crates, and the makeshift table where Hensley and his cohorts plotted their next move. Her non-lethal gear, pepper spray, smoke grenades, zip ties was strapped to her tactical vest, her movements silent as she navigated the shadows, her Marine training making her a ghost in the dark. She faced worse odds in Afghanistan, disarming bombs under fire, leading squads through hostile villages. This was just another mission, but the stakes were higher: her children's safety, Crestwood's future, and the truth she'd sworn to protect. Below, Sheriff Roger Hensley stood at the table, his face twisted with rage, his sheriff's badge glinting under a flickering overhead light. His son, Ethan, hovered nearby, clutching a metal case, his quarterback swagger replaced by a nervous twitch. A dozen Alliance members surrounded them, deputies, business owners, the mayor herself amassed, others too arrogant to hide their faces. Who leaked the damn files? Hensley roared, slamming a fist on the table, sending papers scattering. We had this town locked down for decades. Ethan, his voice shaking, pointed a finger. It's that Carter woman. She's been snooping, turning people against us. I told you she was trouble. Hensley backhanded him, the crack echoing. In the cavernous space. Your stupid stunt with her kids started this mess. We needed subtlety, boy. Not a viral video? Ethan flinched, clutching the case tighter, his eyes darting to the shadows as if sensing Lena's presence. Lena climbed a rusted metal staircase to a walkway overlooking the group, her boots silent on the corroded steps, her night vision goggles painting the scene in green. She cataloged every face. Mayor Evelyn Grant, her tailored suit pristine despite the chaos. Richard Grant, her husband. From the warehouse meeting, a masked man with a military posture, likely a hired enforcer, and a local banker, Harold Peterson, whose son Jake had been with Ethan on Cedar Lane. The ledger from the Wits house, now in Sarah's hands, linked them all: payments, bribes, shell companies funding their reign of terror. Lena's camera caught every word, every gesture, streaming to a world that was finally listening. We liquidate our assets and leave tonight, Evelyn Grant said, her voice sharp, her hand smoothing her suit as if to erase the stain of her crimes. The masked enforcer shook his head, his voice cold as steel. No, we eliminate Carter and her allies. Fear will keep the rest of this town quiet, like always. Hensley nodded, his eyes gleaming. She's one woman. We've buried worse. Lena's blood boiled, but her training kept her steady, her hand resting on a smoke grenade clipped to her vest. She activated the live feed's audio, her voice cutting through the mill like a blade. amplified by the acoustics of the hollow space. Too late for that, Sheriff, the world's watching. Head snapped up, eyes searching the darkness. Hensley drew his sidearm, a .45 that gleamed in the dim light, while Ethan dropped the case. Its clatter echoing. You're done, Carter. Hensley shouted, scanning the shadows. You can't win this. Lena stepped into view on the walkway, her silhouette stark against the rusted backdrop, her camera rolling. You've terrorized families, burned homes, made people disappear all to keep your power, she said. Her voice steady, each word a nail in their coffin. The white roses, the vandalism, the missing families, Angela Reed, the Thompsons, the Davises, it's over. Tell them everything, Hensley. Tell them about the alliance. Hensley fired. The shot wild, the bullet ricocheting off a beam with a metallic ping. Lena dropped a smoke grenade, its hiss filling the mill with a thick cloud, sparking shouts of panic below. The masked men charged up the staircase, their boots pounding. Lena moved like water, her training kicking, and she struck the first in the throat, a precise jab that sent him gasping to his knees, then swept the legs of the second, his head hitting the railing with a dull thud. She zip-tied their wrist, her hands steady despite the chaos. Ethan grabbed the pipe from the floor, rushing down the walkway with a scream. You're done, bitch. Lena sidestepped, using his momentum to flip him over the railing. He landed hard on a crate below, groaning, the metal case skittering across the concrete. Stay down, kid, Lena called, her voice calm but commanding. You're in over your head. The smoke thickened, but Lena's goggles kept her vision clear. She descended the stairs, moving toward Hensley, who was coughing and firing blindly. She hurled the pipe she'd taken from Ethan, striking his hand. The gun flew, and Hensley howled, clutching his wrist. Lena closed the distance, her camera capturing every flinch, every bead of sweat on his face. You stole this town's soul, she said, her voice low and deadly. Tell them about the white roses, the families you drove out, the ones you killed. Hensley's face contorted, his defiance crumbling under the weight of the live stream. Now at 200,000 viewers, they didn't belong here. He spat. We were protecting our way of life. Lena's eyes narrowed, her voice ice. You mean white supremacy and corruption? It ends tonight. Sarah's voice crackled in her earpiece. FBI's at the gate. Hold them, Lena. George added, streams of 300,000. Keep him talking. Lena grabbed Hensley by the collar, dragging him to the table, her knee pinning him down. Talk, she said, her camera inches from his face. Tell the world what you did to Angela Reed. Hensley's eyes darted, his voice breaking. She was stirring up trouble, rallying people against us. We made her disappear. The rose was a warning to others. Lena's grip tightened, but she kept her voice steady. And the Thompsons, the Davises, the fires. Hensley's shoulders slumped, his confession spilling out. We paid off the fire chief, the cops. Anyone who asked questions got bought or buried. The roses were our mark, proof we could do anything. The mill's steel shutters slammed down, a remote hack by George, trapping the alliance inside. FBI agents breached the entrance, flashbangs lighting up the smoke-filled space with blinding burst. Federal agents, hands up, their commander, shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. Lena dropped to the floor, zip-tying Hensley's wrist, her knee still on his back. This is for my kids, she said, her voice low. For every family you hurt. Agents swarmed, cuffing Evan Grant, who screamed about her rights, and Richard, who tried to run but tripped over a crate. The masked enforcer drew a knife, but Lena disarmed him with a wrist lock, dropping him to his knees. Ethan sobbed as agents dragged him away, his father's empire collapsing around him. Outside, the crowd roared, protesters, neighbors, survivors of the Alliance's terror, their signs and voices a tidal wave of defiance. Sarah led a news crew through the chaos, their cameras amplifying Lena's feed. Now at 1 million viewers, Jamal and Maya broke through the crowd, running to Lena as she emerged from the mill, her face streaked with sweat, but her eyes alight with triumph. Mom, Maya cried, burying her face in Lena's chest. Jamal hugged her tightly, his voice choked. You did it. Lena held them close, tears mixing with relief. Is it over, Mom? Maya asked, her voice small against the roar of the crowd. Lena looked at Hensley, cuffed and led away. At the news vans broadcasting the truth, at the protesters chanting her name. Yes, baby, she said. They're done. The aftermath was a whirlwind. By morning, national headlines screamed, asterisk Crestwood corruption exposed, Marine mom brings down criminal network. Asterisk, the FBI seized the mill, recovering the metal case, a hard drive containing bank records, emails, and plans for more violence. Angela Reed's journal, uploaded by Sarah.